In life, thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. Some are light and passing, others stay, they repeat, they echo, and sometimes there is one person, one face, one memory that returns again and again. Whether in the silence of the morning or just before sleep, their presence in your mind seems unshakable. The question arises, why? Why does your mind keep circling back to this person? Is it love? Is it guilt? Is it something unresolved, something unspoken? Today, we do not chase the surface of that thought. Instead, we look deeper. We investigate the nature of attachment, the power of memory, and the unseen forces that control where the mind lingers. We explore the silent contracts we make with people, sometimes without realizing it, because what occupies your thoughts begins to shape your emotions, your actions, and ultimately, your life. This is not just about someone else. It's about you. It's about understanding how your inner world operates when attention keeps returning to the same image, the same voice, the same story. It is the hidden psychology of emotional repetition, and today we bring light to it. We learn how to observe without clinging, how to release without forgetting, and how to understand the signals that the mind is quietly trying to show you. Let us begin this journey inward, not to remove the thought, but to transform your relationship with it. Because real freedom does not come from forgetting, it comes from understanding. The mind is not a blank canvas, it is a living, breathing archive of impressions. Every moment we experience, especially those charged with strong emotion, leaves behind a subtle imprint. Whether it is joy, sorrow, longing, or pain, these emotions do not simply pass. They embed themselves deep within the layers of our awareness. The person who is always on your mind is not just a memory, they are a representation of one of these emotional imprints that the mind is still holding onto. This holding is not deliberate, it is instinctive. The mind, in its nature, clings to what is unresolved or emotionally intense. When someone leaves a powerful mark on your emotional body, the mind doesn't forget easily. Instead, it loops back to it again and again, like a river carving into stone. These loops are not just random memories. They are signs that something within you is seeking completion, understanding, or peace. When you remember someone repeatedly, it's often because the emotion tied to that memory has not yet been fully processed. The mind replays the moments to make sense of them, to revisit the emotion, and to somehow reach closure. But the mind is not always helpful in this process. Sometimes, instead of clarity, it creates confusion. Instead of peace, it strengthens the attachment. We start imagining scenarios, reliving conversations, or building illusions about what could have been. The emotional imprint grows stronger with each repetition, and the person begins to feel like an unavoidable presence within us. This is how thoughts turn into obsessions, not because we choose them, but because the mind is still trying to resolve something through repetition. There is another layer to this. The mind is naturally drawn to contrast. It remembers what was pleasurable and what was painful. Both leave an equally strong mark. If a person brought joy, laughter, connection, or validation, the mind associates them with fulfillment, and the desire for that fulfillment makes their image return. If a person caused hurt, confusion, or loss, the mind seeks resolution, and their image returns. Whether it's attraction or aversion, the emotional intensity becomes the hook. The person becomes the symbol. And the mind, in its search for understanding or healing, holds on. In many traditions, this tendency of the mind is described as attachment. But attachment is not love. Attachment is the inability to let go of a mental or emotional fixation. It keeps the past alive in the present moment. The more we feed these thoughts, by revisiting old messages, photos, or memories, the stronger the imprint becomes. It's like carving deeper grooves in the mind's surface. Even silence can trigger it. A moment of stillness, a familiar scent, a song, or a quiet street. Suddenly, the mind brings them back, not because it wants to, but because it has been trained to return to what is emotionally charged. This is why someone can remain on your mind for weeks, months, or even years after they've left your life. This process is not necessarily a problem, it is human, but without awareness it can become a cycle of suffering. The mind repeats because it thinks the answer lies within the repetition, and yet, often, the answer only arises when we step back and witness the process itself. Instead of feeding the thought, we observe it. Instead of asking why they're on our mind, we ask what part of myself is being stirred by their memory. What unfulfilled emotion is still seeking expression? The person is not the cause. They are the mirror. The mind uses their image to reflect something internal, the fear of abandonment, the desire to be seen, the wound of betrayal, the joy of being accepted. Whatever it may be, the external person is simply the doorway through which the internal state reveals itself. Once this is understood, the grip loosens. The thought no longer controls you. You begin to see the process as natural, but not necessary to hold onto. Thoughts are like guests. Some stay longer because they were offered more space. Some return because the door is still open, and some knock loudly because they've never been fully acknowledged. When someone is constantly on your mind, it is not a sign of weakness or obsession. It is a message, a signal that something within you is active, alive, and perhaps waiting to be seen, not for who they are, but for what they awaken inside you. The mind clings because it remembers. It clings because it feels. It clings because it wants to protect or resolve or relive. This is its way of functioning, but to be aware of this functioning is to begin to find freedom from it. Within each person's mind exists a collection of stories, many of which were never completed. These are not stories written in books, but stories of real experiences, interactions, and emotional moments that once held significance. When someone is constantly on your mind, it is often because the story connected to them remains unfinished. There is something unsaid, something undone, or something unresolved that continues to echo inside your inner world. The mind, in its search for closure, replays these moments as if by repeating them enough, it can find an ending that brings peace. The subconscious mind plays a powerful role in this. It records everything, not just what is said or done, but also what is felt and imagined. Even the subtle, silent feelings that pass between words are remembered by this deeper layer of awareness. When the conscious mind moves on, the subconscious mind continues to hold on, especially to moments that were emotionally charged or left open. These lingering fragments form what could be called psychological loops. They keep repeating, not because we choose to suffer, but because part of us is still searching for an internal conclusion that was never externally reached. Unfinished stories can come in many forms. It might be a relationship that ended abruptly, a conversation that was never had, an apology that was never given, or a hope that was never realized. It might be a dream of what could have been or a longing for what never truly was. The subconscious stores all of these fragments and revisits them in moments of quiet, in dreams, or in flashes of memory during the day. This is why someone might keep appearing in your thoughts, even if time has passed or logic says they should be forgotten. The mind is not just seeking the person, it is seeking completion. This completion, however, is not always possible in the external world. The other person may be gone, distant, or unwilling, but the mind doesn't distinguish between what can be changed and what cannot. It simply keeps reaching, replaying, and revisiting the memory like a loop waiting for resolution. This can create a sense of frustration, confusion, or longing that is difficult to understand. Why is this person still on your mind? The answer is not in the person. It is in the part of you that still feels incomplete because of the emotional weight the memory holds. The subconscious uses repetition as a form of problem solving. It believes that by going over the experience again and again, clarity will arise. But, in reality, clarity does not come from repetition alone. It comes from conscious reflection, from becoming aware of the subconscious pattern and then choosing to see it with new eyes. This is why awareness is the first step toward peace. When you realize that your mind is not broken, but simply trying to finish a story, you begin to shift from confusion to understanding. Another reason why unfinished stories stay active is the emotional significance attached to them. If a person made you feel alive, special, validated, or deeply connected, then the mind gives that story high priority. It becomes a symbol of a meaningful emotional state. The same happens in the opposite direction. If someone caused deep hurt, rejection, or confusion, the subconscious mind also flags that story as important, because pain too demands understanding. This emotional significance binds the story to your memory and makes the person feel ever present. In many cases, people also project parts of themselves into the other person. Hopes, fears, dreams, insecurities. They are mirrored in the relationship. When the connection breaks, those parts feel lost, as if a part of you went missing with them. The mind doesn't just want the person back. It wants those parts of the self to be returned, to be integrated again. Until this integration happens internally, the subconscious continues to revisit the person who represents that missing piece. The unfinished story is not about fixing the past. It is about understanding what it still holds for you in the present. What are you still trying to learn, to feel, to reclaim? What message is hidden inside the repetition of this person's memory? When you stop asking why they keep appearing, and instead ask what part of you is still engaged with their story, something shifts. The energy changes from fixation to curiosity, from entanglement to exploration. The mind begins to settle, not because the story is finished, but because it is finally being seen for what it is. Sometimes closure does not come from the other person. It comes from within. It comes when you no longer need the external to complete the internal. The story may remain open, but your relationship with it changes. You no longer feel pulled by it. You begin to understand it. And in that understanding, the hold it had over you begins to dissolve. Within every human being exists a natural longing for connection. This longing is not merely physical or intellectual. It is emotional and spiritual. It seeks recognition, validation, and safety. And when someone enters our life and touches these inner layers, the mind and heart form a bond. This bond is not always rooted in conscious intention. Often, it arises quietly through shared experiences, deep conversations, or simply the way someone makes us feel seen. Over time, the attachment takes root. But attachment is not always love. It is often mistaken for love because it feels intense, but in truth, attachment is a subtle form of dependence. It is the mind's way of anchoring to what once brought comfort, joy, or a sense of belonging. When someone is always on your mind, it may be a sign that the attachment is still active. The thoughts returning again and again are signals, not of love in its purest form, but of an emotional hook that the mind is still holding onto. These hooks are rarely about the person alone. They are about what that person symbolizes. Perhaps they made you feel worthy. Perhaps they reminded you of a time when you felt alive. Or maybe they filled a space within you that you had not realized was empty. The attachment grows not because the mind is weak, but because it is seeking to protect what felt meaningful. The challenge with attachment is that it binds us to a specific outcome. The mind begins to believe that peace, happiness, or wholeness is tied to the presence or approval of a specific individual, and when that individual is no longer there, the mind resists, it clings, it replays memories, imagines possibilities, or questions decisions. This clinging is not because the person is perfect or irreplaceable. It is because the mind has linked their presence to emotional safety. Without awareness, this becomes a pattern. The person may leave, but the attachment remains, making them feel ever present in thought and emotion. This is where awareness must enter. Awareness does not fight the thoughts. It watches them. It studies the feeling beneath them. It begins to ask questions, not about the other person, but about the self. What am I really seeking when I think of this person? Is it connection, or is it reassurance? Is it love, or is it the fear of being alone? What part of me feels incomplete in their absence? These questions are not meant to judge the attachment. They are meant to understand it. Because only through understanding can we begin to transform it. Attachment grows in the absence of self-awareness. But when awareness shines its light on the inner world, the grip of attachment begins to loosen. One sees that the emotional hook was not placed by the other person. It was created by the self, often without realizing it. We assign meaning to moments, words, and gestures, and in doing so, we create internal contracts. We expect that the person will continue to fulfill those roles, and when they don't, the inner world is shaken. This shaking is what the mind tries to resolve through constant thought. It keeps returning to the person, hoping to repair the inner order. But love, in its true form, is free of clinging. It is spacious. It allows the other to come and go without resistance. Attachment, on the other hand, is tight. It is controlling. It demands presence, and when denied, it suffers. Recognizing this difference is a step toward freedom. It does not mean that you stop caring. It means you stop being trapped by the caring. It means you begin to hold the connection with open hands instead of closed fists. When thoughts of someone arise repeatedly, it is an opportunity to look inward, to see what the attachment is pointing toward. Maybe it is highlighting a place of insecurity, or an old wound that was touched, or a dream that felt so real it became part of your identity. Whatever the case, the key is not to suppress the thought or push the person away. It is to welcome the message beneath the attachment, to ask, what is this teaching me about myself? Each emotional hook is a teacher. It reveals where we are still seeking wholeness outside of ourselves. It reveals the places where love has been confused with fear and connection with control. Through gentle observation, these hooks begin to dissolve. The mind still remembers, but it no longer clings. The person may still arise in thought, but without the same intensity, without the same grasping. And in that space, something new is born, a clarity that was hidden beneath the attachment, a sense of peace that does not rely on anyone else's presence to be felt. Every thought carries energy. When someone is on your mind constantly, it means that a significant amount of your mental and emotional energy is being directed toward that image, that memory, that person. This is not simply a passive occurrence. It is an active engagement between your present state of awareness and a lingering emotional impression. That energy could have been used to create, to build, to evolve, but instead it becomes entangled in repetition. The mind, when unaware, allows this thought, energy to loop endlessly, turning it into an emotional current that pulls you deeper into attachment or longing. But the same energy that binds can also be transformed. Through awareness and intentional practice, this energy can be redirected, not by force or denial, but by understanding and transmutation. The first step in this process is observation, the act of witnessing a thought without becoming it. Most people live in reaction to their thoughts. When the image of the person arises, they follow it, feed it, amplify it. They imagine scenarios, question the past, or rehearse future conversations. Each time this is done, energy is released, energy that reinforces the mental pathway connected to that person. But when a thought is observed instead of obeyed, something subtle shifts. The observer within you awakens. And from that point on, the thought no longer has absolute control. It becomes an object of awareness, not a commander of your behavior. This witnessing allows you to see clearly the emotional quality that accompanies the thought. Is it longing, regret, hope, anger, fear? All of these emotions contain energy. When left unexamined, they can become overwhelming, but when brought into the light of awareness, they begin to soften. You begin to realize that the person on your mind is not the cause of your inner movement. They are the trigger. The cause lies within you. It is your own unresolved emotion, your own expectation, your own inner lack that is generating the repetitive thought. And once this is known, the power begins to return to you. Energy can only be transmuted when it is fully acknowledged, not pushed away, not resisted, not distracted, but faced with presence. To sit with the feeling without judgment or story is to begin the process of inner alchemy. It is like holding a flame and allowing it to transform what was previously hidden. You see the thought arise, you feel the emotion it brings, and then you breathe with it. You allow it to exist without adding new thoughts to it. And in this space of stillness, the emotional charge begins to dissipate. The energy that was trapped in looping thoughts starts to become available again for clarity, for insight, for creativity. The process of transmutation does not mean forgetting the person. It means reclaiming your energy from them. It means recognizing that your power does not lie in their presence or absence, but in your own ability to choose where your attention goes. This does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process of learning how to meet yourself fully, to meet the need that was projected onto another, to meet the longing that was mistakenly placed outside of you. With practice, each moment of returning to awareness strengthens this capacity. The more you observe the mind without reacting, the more spacious you become. Eventually, what was once a source of emotional disturbance becomes a doorway to understanding. You see how the mind functions, how it clings, how it repeats. You see how thoughts arise without invitation and fade without effort when left untouched. You begin to trust this process. You begin to rest in your own awareness instead of chasing resolution in the external world. And in doing so, you reclaim the energy that had been scattered across the terrain of memory. The more this energy is reclaimed, the more vibrant and peaceful the present moment becomes. What once felt like a burden now becomes a tool for awakening. You begin to use this energy to deepen your self-understanding, to sharpen your focus, to serve others, to create something meaningful. You no longer run from the mind, you become the master of it. You watch it move, you see its patterns, and you respond with clarity instead of compulsion. Thought energy is powerful. It can bind you to the past, or it can liberate you into the present. The difference lies in whether you allow the thought to consume you, or you choose to become conscious of it. When you observe the person on your mind as a reflection of your own inner landscape, you stop chasing them and begin exploring yourself. The shift from obsession to observation is the gateway to transformation. It is how thought becomes awareness, how attachment becomes understanding, how the repeated presence of someone in your mind becomes not a prison, but a path toward inner mastery. So, when someone lingers constantly in your mind, it is not simply because of who they are. It is because of what they awaken within you. Whether it's an emotional imprint left behind, an unfinished story the mind is trying to resolve, an attachment formed through inner longing, or energy caught in unconscious repetition, every thought is pointing not outward, but inward. This journey is not about removing that person from your thoughts, but about understanding what their presence reveals about your relationship with yourself. When you begin to observe instead of react, to understand instead of resist, to transform instead of suppress, then the hold loosens. You reclaim your energy, you regain your clarity, and the person who once consumed your thoughts becomes a mirror, one that helped you see deeper into your own mind, your own wounds, your own truth. Real freedom is not in forgetting, it is in awakening. It is the quiet power of self-awareness that dissolves even the deepest attachments and brings you home, not to someone else, but to yourself.